My oncologist in January told me that it's not reversible. I have a few months, not a year. So I changed my doctor. I wanted someone not to tell me I won't die or to tell me that I'll be healed, but I wanted someone to tell me that I have a positive life ahead of me.
62-year-old Naveen Fernandez was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in April 2023. Until his diagnosis, he would cycle daily and run half marathons. Now the cancer has left him with a slim chance of living beyond 5 years. But despite this tough fight, Naveen is not one to give up. He doesn't want to spend an unnecessary amount on treatments that won't help him. Instead, he's focused on ensuring the financial well-being of his wife and daughters.
Now, this at an average of 1% per month gives me about 2 lakhs minus tax. It still gives about 1.5 lakhs. So I do have a surplus every month. I do not depend on equity to run the household. That would be dangerous. Equity is for creation of wealth.
Fernandez is a former fund manager. In fact, he taught finance courses until recently. Now he's investing well, donating to charity and fostering 2 girls from Manipur who lost their homes in the violence that broke out last year.
Each of us have had godfathers, if you like, who have helped us at various stages of our lives. Many of them do not want a reward, but you can always pass it on.
Practical, witty, strong and well-planned. Here's the extraordinary story of Naveen Fernandez, narrated by the man himself, and an insight into how he's ensuring his family is taken care of financially despite all circumstances.
To start off, why don't you tell our listeners some about your cancer treatment, which has been going on for a while?
My cancer was discovered about a year and a half ago, last April, and it was already in stage 4A. I went through chemo, radiation, and while it shrunk in some areas, it spread to the lungs and then it became 4B. My oncologist in January told me that it's not reversible. I have a few months, not a year. So I changed my doctor. I wanted someone not to tell me I won't die or to tell me that I'll be healed, but I wanted someone to tell me that I have a positive life ahead of me. And I didn't want this gentleman crying and saying, you take treatment and it's not going to help you.
So you changed your doctor, and what did the new doctor say?
My new doctor got me into a regimen which included a combination. I don't think it's worked, but at least it has given the positive vibes. I don't like cranky people.
But Naveen, our focus is personal finance, and you have a very interesting life in the sense you have worked all your life some way or the other in the finance in the industry. Earlier, you were working as a salesperson in a mutual fund company. Then you started teaching about finance in college. You also is the chairman of BASL. So why don't you talk a little bit about your career, how it has progressed in the finance industry?
I was awfully lucky to have a friend who was a nerd, brilliant in capital markets, chap named Sanjay Rao, who passed away far, far too early 2 years ago. Vijay Mallya's cousin, actually.
Oh.
And this guy taught me the first practical things I knew about equities. He taught me to read an annual report, cash flows, and I actually owe my career to him. I started investing when I was still in college, a small amount, 125, got into stockbroking and made money, lost it, lost hair also.
Interesting. So people, when they discover they have cancer, right, apart from the emotional trauma that people have, a lot of people, especially who is the sole bread earner of the family, they might be having a lot of issue thinking about their finances, how they would, how their families would manage finances in their absence. So in your case, how was the financial planning like? How comfortable are you financially? How are you positioned financially? What's your take on that?
Actually, I'm extremely lucky that my problem is cancer. It's not something where I just pop off. A few weeks ago, hardly 2 weeks ago, a young girl, 27, in my hometown, Christy Krasta, passed away in a road accident. She was to be married on the 23rd of November. Her family got her buried in her wedding dress. Now, this is extremely hurtful, but let's face it, this was a young girl who had not yet started a family. What if it happened to someone who was 40 or 45 and just collapsed? They do not have the opportunity that I have to do the final touches to the family's retirement plan. So I encourage people to think in terms of finances, insurance, and I'm very fussy about it being the right insurance, medical, accident, um, term life, to protect your family. The next thing is to have a limit to the kind of medical expenses you will go through. In response to your article, someone asked, how do you manage with 30,000 rupees medical expenses a month? I don't go to a corporate hospital. I go to a hospital which has fantastic doctors, but I do not pay a bomb.
Government hospital.
Now it is a government hospital. Before this, it was St. John's Medical College. I also saw Shankara. Now these are very good quality hospitals without a huge profit motive. And that, I think, is something that people should be looking at. How much am I wanting to spend and burden my family with?
So Navin, let's take this point one by one. Let's start with what are your current expenses for your family, and then we'll move on to what are the investments that you have. How are you planning a passive income even in your expense? Then we'll go to wills and insurance and any other thing that's left out. But Navin, let's first start with your family composition. How many people are there? How much money do you spend in a typical month? How many in the family is earning for the household expenses? Could you please give a breakup?
Yeah, we have an eldest daughter who is working in Paris. She also did a post graduation in France. She is independent. She would be happy to contribute to the family, but we don't need that money. So she actually uses it to educate some young people. So that's one person we do not have to spend anything on. We have fostered two girls from Manipur. We pay their fees and take care of the household, the participation in the household.
When did you start fostering this?
Little more than a year ago.
So this is after your cancer
Yes,
treatment.
yes. This was sometime in August or September last year. We are non-vegetarians. We do not scrounge on food and so on. Our monthly expenses are 25 to 35,000, including electricity and water and the like.
So these are just basic expenses like food, water, 25 to 30,000.
Petrol, transport.
Yes.
Okay. The education of the children is separate. We have a lot of support for one of the girls where the hostel is sponsored by the college. We only pay the college fees.
Oh.
That's very generous. So we actually spend about 60,000, 70,000 rupees a month on these things, another 25, 30,000 on medical treatment. So all in all, it's about 90,000 to a lakh.
Could you please tell us if your wife is working or is she?
No, she's not working now. She volunteers at a home for the aged, doing their accounts from Monday to Friday mornings.
Yes.
So that gives her a purpose in life other than just cooking for the family. She knows accounts. She is a graduate with experience. So she's not doing this because she needs the money. She does not. So she's not paid for this. But she gets a lot of joy out of doing this. And she doesn't have to travel too far to the home for the aged. Takes a bus, city bus. We believe in public transport.
You're doing a lot of work for free for charity. Foster kids are there. Plus, your wife is also
You
doing.
don't realize the rewards that it has for you psychologically. You feel
Feel good.
good. Each of us have had godfathers, if you like, who have helped us at various stages of our lives. Many of them do not want to reward, but you can always pass it on. So don't do it for yourself. Do it to honor the person who.
You have also gotten a lot of people who helped you.
I do.
Help us.
I have people who help me, and I respect and honor those.
This is like kind of paying back,
It's paying back, paying forward.
paying forward. So Naveen, yes, coming back to the point. So you spend around 95,000. You were about to tell me how this 95,000 you were financing for all this year.
Yeah, we have about 2.5 crores in our portfolio. We recently added about 16 lakh rupees that came from one of the pending EPF accounts, and that was thanks to your article. It prodded the Prime Minister's office, I'm told, to get the EPFO to work very quickly.
Prime
So-
Minister also.
That's what Centrum tells me,
Wow.
that they decided to act only when they thought the Prime Minister's office was acting on this.
So many people have commented, texted me who haven't yet gotten. I hope they also get their dues.
I do hope so. So it's thanks to you that my portfolio has gone from 2.5 to 2.65 crores. And my bond portfolio from about 2 to 2.15. Now, this at an average of 1% per month gives me about 2 lakhs minus tax. It still gives about 1.5 lakhs. So I do have a surplus every month. I do not depend on equity to run the household. That would be dangerous. Equity is for creation of wealth. It is fun to invest in equity. It is, I don't know if this term would work well, but it's sexy to talk about equity at a cocktail party with a glass of single malt in your hand. Bonds are not so sexy, but bonds, especially for a retired person, gives relatively higher safety and it provides cash flows.
Interesting. So you need to get 95,000 every month. Now the way how you finance this is you have 2 crore roundabout investments in bonds, which gives a return of how much did you say 1% every
1% a month, 12%
1%
per year.
12% per year. So let's assume there are some taxes. There are
So there's 9% after tax.
okay, that is 9% after tax. I'm not very good at math. So 2 crore and 9% from there every year would be how much?
It's about 1.5 lakh rupees a month.
1.5 lakh rupees every month. So you are very comfortable in that way.
Yes.
And Navin, what about, so you invested around 2 crores in corporate bonds. What about the remaining, 50, 60 lakh that you have?
It's about 50 lakhs in equities. I am not a day trader. I do not believe in trading. I teach derivatives. I do not participate in derivatives. Very dangerous. So I look at value stocks. I look for the long term, but I have no hesitation in selling stocks short term if I find that they're too expensive. So that's about 50 lakhs in equity, 40 to 50 lakhs. I'm comfortable with keeping that, and I'm no problem with the value of that 40 lakhs coming down.
Because you have bonds to kind of manage the.
Yes, I do not depend on that money to live. I'll get my breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Any other physical assets that you have apart from all these are financial assets, right?
Yeah. See, when I talk of my portfolio, it is my family portfolio.
Yes.
It includes my wife and substantially my daughters as well. We own a one-bedroom apartment that we bought about 22 years ago, which has been given on rent, and we get 28,500 rupees rent on that, which is a good contribution to the cash flows.
Cash.
My wife owns the house we live in, So to
You
that,
don't have to pay rent.
I don't have to pay rent. I'm a kept man. She looks after me. She houses me as well. The house is owned by my wife, not me.
Interesting. So Naveen, you said you spend around 30,000 every month on your cancer expenses, right? Could you please elaborate what includes in this 30,000?
Yes, there is a combination of immunotherapy and chemotherapy, which was recommended by my cousin, who's a senior oncologist in Bombay. A lot of doctors do not do this combination, but he does a lot of research, and I found that he knows what he's talking about. Immunotherapy is phenomenally expensive, and for 7 months, when I did that, it did not even stop the spread of the cancer. I did a scan yesterday. I'll know the results today, and we'll take a decision on what to do next, which could include continuation of the allopathic treatment I'm doing now, immunotherapy plus chemo. It could mean I move to doing nothing, or to maybe Ayurveda or Ayush or whatever else.
God.
That's a call that I'll take with Dr. Joseph Sequeira, my cousin, sometime tomorrow.
Naveen, another point that we wanted to touch, a lot of people would be interested in this, is we see a lot of stories wherein someone gets into an accident, someone gets paralysis, and the medical cost skyrockets, and they have to sell their house, they have to sell property. I know one neighbor of ours who had a decent family, but after their husband got into an accident, they had to sell their house because the husband was paralyzed, and every day you know how the ICU charges are. So I want to talk about your insurance portion of your part. How much did you spend for your cancer treatment, and how much of it came through insurance, and what are the things that you think people should do?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me an embarrassing question. As a financial planner, I should have had more medical insurance. I did not. Over 2 years, my medical bills have been about 20 lakhs. And 10 of these, half of this came from medical insurance. The decision to take the immunotherapy was actually my wife's. And I think she has a right to decide what to do with my body to a large extent. And it's also her money that she's spending. So she's put up 10 lakhs of her money on something that I was willing to go along with. Okay. The next decision that I'm going to take along with Dr. Joseph Sequeira,
Doctor.
Doctor, my oncologist cousin, is going to be what next. And in any case, I would not go to an extremely expensive place. In my will, I have mentioned that my terminal treatment, if any, should not include anything like a ventilator or unnecessarily dragging on my life. If I'm dead, please give my body to the pathology department of a medical college and let the students work on it. Sometimes we are forced by social norms to go to a very expensive corporate hospital, to spend money only because we are embarrassed to do not to do this, and our neighbors might insult us. I don't live for my neighbors, and I recommend everyone that live for themselves. There are alternate treatments. Of course, you should have sufficient medical insurance. Insurance is a cost. So have sufficient, not too much, not too little. And also ensure that you go to some place that gives you sensible treatment at sensible pricing, and that's available. My treatment, I could have gone to a corporate hospital, and my oncologist did tell me that I would need to set aside 1.5 to 2 crores for 2 years of treatment. And when I pressed him, he told me that it will not increase my lifespan nor increase my lifestyle. So I was upset and I actually called him a quack and I walked out. I want positivity. Is something good for me? As a financial planner, I want my customer to ask me questions. As the patient, I should be asking my doctor the questions.
Naveen, you said you wish you had more insurance, right? So, anyone who is listening to this interview, what would you recommend?
I would suggest that not less than 10, not more than 25 lakhs would be ideal. The reason is that if you take, say, a 3-year policy, medical policy, it would give you top ups. Spending a large amount on premiums is a cost that you're meeting now. That's money that you could use elsewhere.
Yes.
Unless you're likely to have a kidney or a liver transplant, you do not need a 50 lakhs plus policy. So 15, 20 lakhs is good.
But you're saying at least a 30 or 25 lakh policy everyone should have.
I think 25 would be the highest, 10 would be the least. I would look at a 10 to 25 lakh medical policy with an insurance company that has a good track record of settlement. Not everybody has that.
Be it more expensive, but that is better to get.
Yes, I know insurance companies that reject policy. So I would rather an insurance company tell me when I'm applying that they're not giving me the policy, rather than take my premium and reject my claim later.
Hopefully, in your case, whatever insurance you had, you were lucky to get all those.
I have absolutely had no problems.
Naveen, lastly, I wanted to ask you about your will. So, will means what will happen to your assets, financial asset, house, everything that you own after you expire. Also, I wanted to know who will manage your investments after you pass away, because you know how corporate bonds are. You need to choose them very carefully.
When I prepared my will, I made it very simple. For one, I appointed an executor who's my neighbor. In the inability of that person to be the executor, I've asked for the next neighbor to do it. And I've set aside a certain amount to compensate them for their effort, plus all expenses. I think it is fair not to expect free work even from your good friend. It's not fair. People might do it. And the other thing I've done is I've kept it simple. Everything to wife. If we die together, which is it's possible, a road accident or something, everything to daughter. And if all three die together, it all goes to a charity in education. And the charity is named in the will. I've also mentioned that I do not want severe terminal treatment. And I've already donated my body to a medical college. I've got my donor's card. So that's fine. I have a mentee from the last few years who's a brilliant young girl, a chartered accountant, who has been learning some of the nuances that I look for in my research. I am not a strong believer in credit ratings. I prefer to do my homework, which is fundamental research. I like to dive deep into the financials and look at ratios that are relevant to create a feeling of safety to me and to the friends who I guide in their bond investments. And we've made some pretty good returns.
So you're going to give her the responsibility of managing your bond
Yes.
portfolio in your absence.
Yes. So my wife and she will work together on this. My wife is not a dud. So that's an advantage.
She's from a commerce background.
She is from a commerce background.
Naveen, lastly, this is a very interesting question. What would you recommend anyone who might be, 18 years old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old, on how they should go about their life in accordance to how their, financial planning should also be done?
I wrote a textbook some years ago for the Certified Financial Planning course, and I'm embarrassed that I quoted something that's so often said: set aside money for your retirement from your first paycheck. But as a teacher, I have been telling my students, first 4 or 5 months splurge. Okay, enjoy your first paychecks. But once you're through with that, start creating a budget. And your budget should have not less than 25% to pay into your future. That is, you create a fund for short term goals, medium term goals, long term goals, including retirement. Not less than 25%. All your bonuses and increments should be fed into that so that you have comfort. The saddest thing that can happen is to be 70 years old and broke. We don't have the concept of a joint family anymore. We don't have large families where the children looked after the parents. And if we are going to live in this situation, we need to create our comfort. So a budget is very important. So every 100 rupees, as I've told my daughter, 25 goes into investments, 10 into charity, 5 into education for yourself. That's the best way to grow your career. And rent is 30 to 40%, rent or EMI. Food is another 10 or 15%. 5% you spend on preparing for work. I might not have shaved if I didn't coming here. And what's left for partying is about 5%. The sacred part is the investment part, and your budget has to be rigid as far as that investment part is concerned.
When did you start investing, Naveen?
1981-82, 125 rupees in an IPO.
Since then, you have been continuing.
I have lost a lot of money and I have made a lot of money till I decided comfort and enough. The definition of enough is very difficult. And having been an equity person throughout, from the time I started investing, even in my career as a portfolio manager, as a stockbroker, I had to de-risk myself. And in the year 2000, I studied the bond markets. Uma Shashikant, the brilliant bond market teacher, took this 3-day intensive course that was sponsored by a mutual fund, Alliance Mutual Fund. And I fell in love with the simplicity of the bond market.
I think, Naveen, that was it, and so nice having you over. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much for your inputs.
Thank you, Shashin. Thanks for having me.